Ladies and gentlemen, FEA President Andy Ford, Dr. Jill Biden, and the Vice President of the United States, Joe Biden.
To say we're thrilled and excited is truly an understatement. I have the pleasure of introducing to you the woman who will introduce our next speaker. She is a mother, a grandmother, a longtime educator, and an active member of her community. Dr. Jill Biden works to bring attention to the sacrifices made by military families, to highlight the importance of community colleges to America's future, and to raise awareness around areas of particular importance to women, including breast cancer prevention. She also continues to teach full-time at a community college in Virginia. Dr. Biden says that community colleges are one of America's best-kept secrets, and I know the UFF members would agree. She is working to highlight the critical role of community colleges around the country in preparing the American workforce for the future. Dr. Biden has been an educator for 3 decades. She doesn't look it either, and I'm probably not supposed to say that. Before moving to Washington, D.C., Dr. Biden taught English at a community college in Delaware, at a public high school, and at a psychiatric hospital for adolescents. Jill earned her doctorate in education from the University of Delaware in January of 2007. Her dissertation focused on maximizing student retention in community colleges. She also has 2 master's degrees, both of which she earned while working and raising a family. FEA delegates, please welcome fellow NEA member, Dr. Jill Biden.
Thanks. I think this is
You want him?
more. No. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I knew I was in the right place when I was watching you all rocking and rolling out here. It's so great to be here. I love being in a room of fellow educators. I'm sorry, but I have laryngitis, so I'm going to try and get through this. For those of you who don't know me, like Andy said, I've been a teacher for longer than I care to admit. You know, thanks a lot for mentioning it's over 30 years. I taught as a reading specialist in public high schools, and I did tutor at-risk teens in a psychiatric hospital in Wilmington. I continue to teach full-time at a community college in Northern Virginia. In fact, I was in the classroom yesterday, yes, with this voice, and I was grading papers on the way here. See, many of you know exactly what that's like. There was never a doubt when Joe and I moved to Washington after the inauguration that I would continue to teach. I know all of you understand. Being a teacher is not what I do, it's who I am. For me, there's no greater feeling than when a student grasps a concept I'm trying to teach. I see them get it, and I know that in addition to knowledge, I am giving them confidence that will make a real difference in their lives. Like you, I see every day just how important education is in the lives of Americans. I see how a good education can put kids on the right path to success. I also know from experience that while teaching is rewarding, it's challenging. And I can tell you today that this administration is working hard to support education, to support teachers, and to provide real leadership in our schools. Thank you. So I want to thank each and every one of you for being here, and thank you for the work you do every day in your classrooms. And it is now my pleasure to introduce a man who has always been an advocate for education and educators. I mean, let's face it, he's married to me. My husband, our Vice President, Joe Biden.
Hey folks, how are you? Good to be with you. Thank you, man. Andy, Joanne, Clara, and all of the delegates here, please have a seat. In Washington, I'm known as Jill Biden's husband. That's my name. And I'm in love with an educator. And I think you can all see why. And by the way, like all educators, Jill has a healthy degree of skepticism. That's why it literally required me to ask her 5 times to marry me. 5. Best decision I ever made, although I think she's still wondering whether she gave the right answer the 5th time around. You know, it's interesting. When you are an educator, or you're married to an educator, or you dip your own toe in the water like I did teaching for 20 years, a course in law school, you find that you're friends with, you go to the movies with, you raise your children with, you eat with, a whole lot of other people involved in education. And there's one thing that I've observed, and I literally mean this. The reason I love you guys is I think more than any other group of Americans, you believe in possibilities, as my mom would say. You believe in the possibility of any child in America to grow up to be something special. These possibilities are ones that you thrive on, and you continue to improve our children and, quite frankly, yourselves. You know, I learned a long time ago, I've been a senator for a long time, and Christmas time we'd be walking down the mall, in the big malls in Delaware shopping, and there'd be any kid under the age of, actually 30, would yell, "Hey, hey, hey!" And as U.S. Senator, I'm used to going like this. They go, no, not you. Jill. You guys know what I'm talking about. You guys know what I'm talking about. You're in this not for the financial remuneration, but the psychic remuneration of helping all these kids. It's the reason that motivates you. You have that fervent belief in the power of America, the future of America. And you know, literally not figuratively, it rests in your hands and in those classrooms. It rests in how well we mine and expand the minds of these incredible kids. I wish the people who spend, it seems like, their recent occupation of attacking you, sometimes it looks like from abroad, like your governor. I wish he and I wish they knew you better. And I mean this sincerely, and I say this to the press. I wish they knew you better. I don't know anyone who's devoted their life to being an educator who's done it for the money. I don't know anyone who's devoted their life to education who couldn't have done many other things. But you did it for one reason. The only thing that keeps you in education, as I said, as my mom would say, the possibilities. You're sure not doing it for the financial windfall of being a teacher. And folks, all over America. We're seeing our friends on the other team in Congress and the governors cutting funding for education. And in too many places, we're seeing governors attack you as, quote, public employees. Here in Florida, yours is doing both with a particular relish. Look, all of us in this room, all of us on this stage, we all have one thing in common of which I am certain, regardless of our background. You, Andy, me, Joanne, Clara, Jill, Barack, Michelle, none of us would be in the position we're in today were it not for the inspiration of one or maybe two teachers. Somebody who looked at you. I mean this. And I say to the reporters here who are skeptical, think about it. There was somebody beyond your mom and your dad or your grandmom and your grandpa. And especially if you didn't have a mom or a dad or a responsible adult taking care of you, there's somebody who said, I see something in you. When I was a kid, I used to stutter badly. Matter of fact, all the way through high school. Did you all see the King's Speech? Well, that was me, literally, not a joke. When we sat down to watch that speech, watch that movie, the first scene is at the racetrack. I reached over and just squeezed Jill's hand. My hand started to perspire because I could feel that sinking feeling in my chest, how mortified I used to be. It's awful hard to ask a girl to the prom. And think about it. It's the only thing you can laugh at. You wouldn't laugh at me had I had a cleft lip. You wouldn't laugh at me if I had a serious limp. You wouldn't laugh at me if I had a lot of other impediments. But even now, people can laugh, they think, at someone who stutters. Well, thank God I had teachers and a family who convinced me that I was not defined by my stuttering. I remember, I can name you the teachers, Sister Michael Mary, Mr. O'Mara, who would say to me, Joey, you're smart. You're smart. My mother would constantly tell me, which wasn't always true, Joey, you're a handsome boy, you're a smart boy, you're a good boy. And folks, look, think of all of the kids that you've run across. Almost everybody has something. Almost everybody has something. But my teachers, and two in particular, convinced me in spite of my stutter that I was capable. I would have never overcome my impediment. So I want to thank all of you for inspiring your kid, the kid in your class who stutters, the child who's overweight, the beautiful young child who just doesn't have any notion about the possibilities that lie before her. So, we owe you. Some of you were at the National Convention of the NEA this past year when Dennis Van Rokel said it best. And here's what Dennis said, and I quote, I know of no family of means in America who would deny their children preschool, child care, good nutrition, health care, and other opportunities from soccer to music, dance to art. He went on to say, if this nation wants to remain strong and prosperous, why would we perpetuate a system that denies those opportunities to any child? Folks, literally, this is the fundamental question before us today. And the new Republican Party, for this is not your father's Republican Party. This is a different breed of cat. They're not bad guys. They're just different. Seriously. I'm not questioning their motive. but they have a fundamentally different view than those of us in this hall, and a fundamentally different view than the Republicans I worked with for years in the Senate. It's not that they don't care. It's just they don't seem to think that public education is salvageable. They don't think it's worth the investment necessary to make it what we know it can be. It's not that they think we can't afford it. It's just that they'd rather invest the money elsewhere. And on this point, they're really totally consistent. Some think they're anti-education. It's not that. They have a totally consistent philosophy, and one that I think is totally wrong, and I'm not being a wise guy. It should be no surprise to any of us that the same people who said we shouldn't have saved almost 300,000 of your jobs in the Recovery Act are the same people who recently voted against supporting 400,000 education jobs nationwide and 26,000 right here in Florida through the American Jobs Act. It's consistent, but it's wrong. It should be no surprise that the same people who opposed our efforts to fund reconstruction of our roads, our rails, and our bridges are the same people who opposed the restructuring of 35,000 dilapidated schools in America, some of which I visited right here in your state in the last month. They voted no. It's consistent, and it's wrong. It should be no surprise to the same people who balk at the opportunity tax credit of $10,000 tax credit to send your child to college also wanted to lower taxes for the top 1% in America and increase those tax cuts. It's consistent, but it's wrong. It should be no surprise that they think that it's class warfare to raise taxes by 0.5% on the first dollar after the first $1 million you've already made. A tax, which I might add, would have paid for restoring 400,000 education jobs, 18,000 police officers, and 7,000 firefighters. You know what it would have meant? If you made $1,100,000 next year, you would pay $500 more in your taxes. Folks, we've got to wake up. We've got to stop playing around. We've got to understand that these folks aren't crazy. They have a totally consistent philosophy. Cut school lunch and nutrition, eliminate unemployment insurance, cut food stamps, slash funding for medical and scientific research at the great universities in this state, and slash fundings for renewable energy, innovation, solar, wind, and biomass at the same time. Slash funding for battery technology in the future, which will allow our vehicles to go up to 300 miles on a single charge and build tens of thousands of recharging stations nationwide, coincidentally saving us tens of billions of dollars in imported oil. Folks, they have a fundamentally different value set than we have. Fundamentally. My dad used to have an expression. He'd say, "Don't tell me what you value. Show me your budget, and I will tell you what you value." Don't tell me what you value. Show me your budget, and I will tell you what you value. Look at their budget as they propose it. The Republican plan in the Senate and House is to slash education by 25%. Cutting deep, it could result in the elimination of kindergarten, larger class sizes, no art, no music, limited courses in sciences and languages, and in some cases, the wholesale elimination, like in this state and many places, of after-school programs. And in some cases, like yours, the negative impact on the federal side is complicated and compounded by the action of your state and your governor. These same guys, look at their budget. They want to eliminate the $2,500 tax credit for college. Let it expire. Make the banks the middlemen once again, raising the cost of education by $60 billion for college loans in the name of free enterprise. Shift spending in education funding from public education to private schools and vouchers. Eliminate our law that caps student loan repayment at 10% of your salary. Look, folks, I know no other way of saying this. Our Republican colleagues in the House and the Senate, as well as those I've listened to, are debating the chance to be President of the United States, have taken on the role of obstructionist. But Barack and I know we cannot wait. Our children cannot wait. Because for them to wait now means they will be behind the curve, in some cases, the rest of their lives. They don't get to go back and make up kindergarten. They don't get to go back and have that art class. They don't get to go back and have that after-school program. They don't get to go back. So we cannot wait. And that's why, when the press says, why are we continuing to pursue funding of teachers and education programs? Why? Because it matters. They cannot wait. Folks, I could go on, but I want to mention one more thing. All states are struggling from the impact of this brutal recession we inherited. But there's a strange thing going on. In certain states, they're using an international crisis and a recession caused by the policies they created in order to shift in an organized effort to place the blame for budget shortfalls squarely on teachers. Folks, this is one of the biggest scams in modern American history. They're using you to launch the most direct assault on labor, not just in my lifetime, but without hyperbole, since the 20s. Our differences with the governors of Ohio, Wisconsin, Michigan, and right here in Florida run much deeper than our differing philosophies on public education and educators. Many of these states have rejected good faith efforts by all of you to make sacrifices, to do your part to balance the state budgets. I was recently up in Michigan. Wrong. I've been in Michigan recently in 2 schools, but I was recently in York, Pennsylvania. The governor cut out kindergarten money in the district. You know what the teachers union did? They voluntarily gave up their pay raises for the next several years. They gave them up to pay so kids could have in York, Pennsylvania, kindergarten. So don't tell me teachers don't care. You were not responsible for putting these budgets out of balance. Mandating decertification of teachers' unions, limiting the issue of public school employees, how they can bargain over paycheck deception, benefits slash, wages cut. Look, folks, you're all willing to do your part, and you have, like every other American that's been hurt. But you know something that I think most Americans know, at least I'm counting on. The future of this country rests upon us once again having the best educated workforce in the world. Jill has an expression. She said, any country that out-educates us will out-compete us. Folks, and by the way, it is about working conditions. Unlike almost every other organization, your fight is our children's fight. Your fight is about our children. Your fight is about giving them the best chance. It's also about whether or not we'll provide things like adequate preschool education. We finally reached a consensus in America, no longer debated among academics, that preschool education may be the most consequential moment in time in the education of a child. At the very time we reach that consensus, we're slashing the programs. Folks, how many more studies do we need? How many more studies do we need to find out that if we give a kid, no matter what their circumstances, a preschool, Head Start, good preschool, their chances of graduating Or put another way, their chances of dropping out of school are 4 times less than if they do not have that opportunity. How many studies do we need to know? How much more do we have to debate? Look, folks, this is about whether or not we have classroom size allow a child to be recognized, not about you be overworked, about a child to be recognized. It's about whether or not we offer courses in math and science, whether we introduce our children to art and music. It's about whether or not we have adequate sports programs, about whether or not we provide education and financial capability for students who have the capacity and demonstrated capacity to go to college. That's what it's all about. It's about giving our kids a chance and in turn, giving America a chance. Folks, ultimately, it's not hyperbole to say this about whether or not America will succeed. It's a fact that more than half the jobs of the next decade are going to require a post-secondary education. How can you expect to compete for the future without the best educated, best prepared workforce in the world? Ladies and gentlemen, how can we lead the world in the 21st century when we rank 16th in the world in the percent of young people we graduate from college? 16th in the world. And how can we expect to do any of that, to remedy any of that without you? Folks, we should be working with you, not against you. You know you have to make changes. You know, like every profession in the world, you have to adapt and make changes, and you're doing it. And some of them are painful. But it's not about going after you. It's about walking with you. We should be listening to you, not lecturing you. We should be embracing you, not embarrassing you and pushing you aside. Folks, you're not the problem. You are the solution. Or put it another way, how without you do we have any chance to lead the world in the 21st century? Folks, you're teaching the next generation of engineers the arithmetic they'll need to have a foundation to do everything else they do. You're teaching the next generation of novelists how to write a simple sentence in a paragraph. You are uncovering the next Mozart. You're literally unleashing the next Steve Jobs. You're building a generation after generation of hardworking Americans in all walks of life. Doctors, lawyers, architects, computer programmers, welders, business owners, artists, soldiers, and yes, educators. Educators. Folks, it is not, again, an exaggeration to say your classrooms are the incubators of new technology, of future scientific breakthroughs, of medical discoveries. It's in your classrooms. There's a future president of the United States, or if they're really smart, a future vice president of the United States of America. That was a joke. He's a lot smarter than I am. Ladies and gentlemen, the way some people talk about our children, they talk about them as if they're someone else's children. These are our children. These children are the kite strings which lift our national ambitions aloft. These children have as much capability as any child in the world. As a matter of fact, they're the only nation in the world where they represent children from all over the world. And ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the day, the way Barack and I look at it, we're going to be judged by whether or not we honored our obligation to our children. My favorite poet, William Butler Yeats, once wrote, "Education is not about filling a bucket, it's about lighting a fire." It's not about filling a bucket, it's about lighting a fire. So light those fires. Light those fires and light them brightly everywhere in America, for every generation has relied upon you. And as long as we're around, we will stand with you. You know, and I know, we've got to make changes. We don't argue with that. But we know that ultimately, you have to. My dad used to say, you know, Joey, a job's about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about dignity. It's about respect. If we want you to light those fires, we have to grant you the dignity to serve, and award you the respect that you've earned. So, ladies and gentlemen, as my grandpop would say, keep the faith. Keep the faith, because you are the hope we have, because you have our children in your hands. I want to thank you, and may God bless you all, and most of all, may God protect our troops. Thank you very, very much.
Applause for the Vice President of the United States of America.